My parents paid for my sister's wedding but skipped mine, so I eloped in peace and blocked them from every photo, video, and memory that followed. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and if I had to sum up my life in one phrase, it would be this: Emily's little sister. That's who I've always been. Not a person, not a daughter, just a comparison. My parents never said it outright, but their actions screamed it louder than words ever could. Emily was the golden child, radiant, confident, adored, while I was the quiet shadow trailing behind her glow. I remember her wedding day like it was yesterday. The whole event looked like something out of a magazine: white roses draped across chandeliers, a live band, and a custom gown that cost more than my car. My parents beamed like royalty, showing her off as if she were their crowning achievement. And me, I was in the background, literally handing out programs, fixing a centerpiece, smiling for photos no one would ever frame at one point. I stood in the corner of the reception hall, watching her slow dance with her husband while everyone clapped and cried. My mom leaned over to a guest and whispered, "We couldn't be prouder." I waited for her to glance my way, maybe even nod, but she never did. I don't think she even noticed I was there when people toasted Emily. They called her the perfect daughter, the pride of the family. And I felt that familiar ache in my chest, that quiet reminder that no matter what I achieved, it would never be enough. I'd graduated with honors, landed a solid job, stayed out of trouble. But none of that ever made headlines in our house. That night, as laughter and music echoed around me, I realized something painful. Love in my family wasn't unconditional. It was a currency, and I was always broke. And in that moment, I started wondering, how long could I keep pretending I didn't notice? A year after Emily's wedding, I met Alex, the kind of man who didn't try to impress anyone, just listened, genuinely. He worked as an electrician, steady and dependable. Not flashy like Emily's husband, who drove a Tesla and wore designer suits. Alex made me feel grounded, seen. For once, I wasn't a background character in someone else's spotlight. I thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would be happy for me. I couldn't have been more wrong. The first time I brought Alex home, my mom's smile didn't reach her eyes. She looked him up and down and asked, "So, you work with your hands?" My dad chuckled under his breath like it was a punchline. Alex just smiled politely, answering every question with calm respect. But I could feel their judgment hanging heavy in the air. It's like cigarette smoke that clings long after you leave the room. Later that night, my mom pulled me aside. "Sweetheart," she said, in that voice she uses when she's pretending to care, "don't you think you should aim a little higher? You've got a degree. You can do better than someone who spends his days in overalls." I remember staring at her, trying to find words. "Mom, he's a good man. He makes me happy." She sighed, shaking her head. "Happiness doesn't pay bills, darling." From that day forward, every conversation about Alex was a performance of disapproval. My father joked about blue-collar dreams. Emily teased that I was going through a phase, and even at family dinners, they'd find subtle ways to remind me I was dating beneath my potential. It wasn't just judgment anymore. It was sabotage. They started excluding him from events, making excuses, pretending not to know his name. And as much as I tried to laugh it off, each comment chipped away at something inside me, because deep down, I knew they weren't just rejecting him. They were rejecting me. And the worst part? I hadn't even told them we were talking about marriage yet, when Alex proposed. It wasn't flashy or staged, just the two of us on a quiet hike, the sunset painting the sky in gold. He pulled out a small ring, simple and beautiful, and said, "I can't promise perfection, but I can promise peace." I cried, not just because I loved him, but because I'd finally found someone who made me feel safe. Telling my parents should have been a joyful moment. Instead, it felt like walking into a firing squad. We invited them over for dinner, hoping to share the news face to face. As soon as I showed them the ring, my mom's expression froze mid-smile. My dad just muttered, "You're really doing this?" No congratulations. No hugs. Just tension thick enough to choke on. I tried to fill the silence. "We haven't set a date yet, but we'd love your support. Maybe a small ceremony, nothing crazy." My mother gave a dry laugh. Small sounds about right. You'll need to keep it modest. You two aren't exactly established. Her words hit harder than she probably realized. I thought back to Emily's wedding, the $40,000 venue, the designer gown, the orchestra. My dad even took out a second mortgage to make her fairy tale day happen. So I asked carefully, "Did you plan to help us like you did for Emily?" The silence that followed felt like a verdict. My father finally spoke, eyes still on his plate. "Your sister's wedding was different. A once-in-a-lifetime event. You'll understand one day." Alex squeezed my hand under the table, grounding me. But my stomach twisted. Different. That word echoed in my head like a curse. I forced a smile, swallowing my hurt. Right, different. But later that night, lying in bed beside Alex, I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment. The fake smiles, the patronizing tone, all of it. For the first time, I realized they weren't planning to be part of my wedding at all, and I had no idea just how far they'd go to prove that, eh? A few weeks after that dinner, I got a call from Emily. She sounded cheerful, almost smug. "Guess what?" she said. "Mom and Dad are paying for our second honeymoon, Italy this time." I froze. Phone pressed against my ear. Second honeymoon. Emily had been married barely a year. Meanwhile, my own wedding plans sat in limbo because my parents claimed they couldn't afford to contribute a dime. "Wow," I managed, forcing a laugh. "That's great for you," she sighed dramatically. "I mean, it's only fair. They said they want to celebrate marriages that honor tradition. You know how they are about appearances?" Appearances. That word sliced right through me. Apparently, their idea of tradition meant funding the daughter who fit their perfect image and abandoning the one who didn't. That night, I confronted my mom over the phone. "You told me money was tight," I said. "But you're sending Emily to Italy?" She didn't even sound guilty. "Sweetheart, Emily's marriage is more aligned with what we value. You and Alex are different. You're rushing things. We just want you to learn responsibility." Responsibility? My voice cracked. I've been paying my own rent since college. I've worked every job without asking for a cent. You paid for everything Emily ever wanted. Her reply was quiet but cold. "Emily gives us something to be proud of." That line broke me in ways I can't explain. For days, I couldn't eat or sleep. I kept replaying that sentence, the way her voice softened, like she was saying something logical, not cruel. Alex found me one night sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. He knelt down, took my hands, and whispered, "Then let's make a life that doesn't need their approval." And in that moment, a seed of defiance took root. But I wasn't ready to let go yet, not until I faced them one last time. A month later, Alex's family decided to host an engagement dinner for us. Small, warm, and genuine. His parents were thrilled, the kind of kind-hearted people who hugged first and asked questions later. They rented out a cozy restaurant, decorated it with fairy lights and flowers, and even arranged a small slideshow of our photos. I felt nervous, but hopeful. Maybe if my parents saw how much love surrounded us, they'd soften. They didn't. They arrived an hour late. My dad wore jeans and a baseball cap. My mom didn't even bother to dress up. When I rushed to greet them, she looked around the restaurant and muttered, "This is quaint." Alex's mom, always gracious, smiled through the tension and tried to make conversation. But my parents just nodded and picked at their food like they were doing charity work. When it was time for speeches, Alex stood and thanked everyone for believing in us. His voice trembled with emotion, sincerity that filled the room. When he sat, everyone clapped. Everyone except my parents. Then my mom raised her glass. "Here's to Emily," she said suddenly, smiling at the confusion in the room. "May her marriage continue to inspire others in the family." The silence that followed was suffocating. My throat tightened as I forced a smile. Alex's hand found mine under the table, grounding me, but I could feel my cheeks burn. My father chuckled, adding, "We set a high bar with Emily's wedding, hard to top that." I laughed weakly, pretending it didn't hurt, but inside I was crumbling. Every giggle, every dismissive comment felt like another reminder that I'd never be their daughter. just their disappointment. When the evening ended, they left without saying goodbye. My mom texted later, "Don't be so sensitive. It was just a joke." I stared at that message for a long time, and for the first time in my life, I didn't reply. After the engagement dinner, things grew colder. Calls from my parents became rare, and when they did come, they were laced with guilt trips disguised as concern. "We just don't want you to make a mistake," my dad would say. My mom's voice always followed, sighing dramatically. "It's just, we can't support a marriage we don't believe in." Support. That word meant money to them, not love, not presence. Still, some part of me held on to hope. Maybe they'd change their minds. Maybe they'd show up, just once, as parents who cared. When I sent them the official wedding date and venue details, the reply came 2 days later in a 3-line email. "We won't be attending. It's nothing personal. We just don't agree with your choices. We hope you understand."
Aww.
I remember staring at the screen until the words blurred. Alex found me like that, sitting on the edge of the bed, motionless. I handed him the phone without a word. He read it, clenched his jaw, then sat beside me quietly. "They're never going to change," he said softly. "You have to stop bleeding for people who like the sight of you hurting." I wanted to argue, to defend them, but I couldn't, because deep down, I knew he was right. That night, I scrolled through old family photos on my phone, birthdays, holidays, moments where I was smiling next to people who never really saw me. My hand shook as I hovered over the Family Forever group chat. My mother's last message sat there. "Emily got a promotion. No congratulations for my engagement. No acknowledgement of my life." I pressed leave group. The notification disappeared instantly. It was silent afterward. Heavy, but strangely freeing. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just losing my parents. I was finally losing the illusion that they ever loved me the way I loved them. The following weeks felt like grief. Not the kind you feel when someone dies. The kind that comes when you finally accept someone never really lived up to who you thought they were. I kept replaying memories, wondering if there had ever been a moment where my parents were truly proud of me. Every recollection ended the same, with Emily in the spotlight, and me applauding from the shadows. One night, while I was sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by half-finished wedding plans and unpaid deposits, Alex walked in quietly. "What if we just didn't do this?" he said. I frowned. Didn't do what? The big wedding. The stress. The begging for approval that's never coming. He sat beside me, his tone calm but certain. "Let's elope. Just you, me, and peace." At first I laughed. It sounded reckless, unplanned. But as I looked around at the chaos, the invitation list filled with people who didn't care, the budget that drained us, the empty reserved space for parents who refused to show up, the idea didn't seem crazy. It felt liberating. "But my dad was supposed to walk me down the aisle," I whispered. The thought alone cracked something inside me. Alex reached for my hand. "Then we'll walk together. You don't need anyone to give you away." Tears burned in my eyes. I'd spent years trying to earn love that came with conditions. But here was someone who offered it without asking me to shrink first. That night, we booked 2 plane tickets. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet coastal town a few hours away. No family, no expectations, no comparisons. As the confirmation email arrived, I stared at the screen, heart pounding. For the first time, I wasn't chasing their approval. I was chasing my own peace. The morning of our elopement felt nothing like I expected. No chaos. No forced smiles. No be carefuls. Just peace. I woke up to the sound of waves brushing against the shore and sunlight spilling through the hotel curtains. For the first time, I didn't feel nervous. I felt light. Alex brewed coffee while humming some song under his breath, wearing that same calm expression he always had when life tried to test us. "You ready?" he asked, holding out my cup with a grin. I smiled. More than I've ever been. We didn't have a crowd or a fancy photographer, just a local officiant. Our friend Mia to record it, and a patch of sand overlooking the ocean. I wore a simple white dress. I found on sale months earlier. No designer tag, no approval needed. When the wind lifted my veil, Alex laughed softly and tucked it back in place. That tiny gesture, so gentle, so unperformed, meant more than any staged wedding photo ever could. As the officiant spoke, I felt the weight of every disappointment fade away. No one was there to judge me, compare me, or remind me that I wasn't enough. It was just us, two people who chose each other, not because it looked good, but because it felt right. When we said our vows, I choked up halfway through. Alex wiped my tears with his thumb, whispering, "You're home now." Afterward, we ate takeout on the beach, still in our wedding clothes, laughing between bites. The sky turned golden. The ocean reflected it like glass. And for once, I didn't feel small. No music. No applause, just peace. I thought that was the end of the story, that silence could finally mean happiness. But one photo changed everything when we got back home. I couldn't resist posting one small photo. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. Just our hands intertwined, my wedding ring glinting in the sun, captioned simply, "Finally peace." I didn't tag anyone. I didn't explain. It wasn't meant to be a statement, just a quiet celebration of something I'd waited my whole life to feel. Within hours, my phone started buzzing. At first, it was friends sending heart emojis and congratulations. Then the tone shifted. A text from Emily popped up first. "Wow. So that's how you announced you got married?" No invite, no heads up. Classy. Before I could even type a reply, another message came from my mother. "You embarrassed us. Do you realize how this makes our family look?" My father's voicemail followed, calm, but dripping with that familiar disappointment. "You should have told us. People are asking questions. It's humiliating. Humiliating." That word echoed through my chest like thunder. All my life, I had been their embarrassment for being quiet, for not dressing like Emily, for choosing a man who worked with his hands instead of sitting in an office. And now, my peace, my joy, was another offense, by evening. Emily had made a post of her own, a smiling selfie with the caption, "Some people forget family when it's inconvenient." I could never. Her friends filled the comments with sympathy. The story spread fast. Suddenly, my private happiness became public gossip. Old relatives I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me, asking why I'd gone rogue. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the chaos, realizing something ugly, I hadn't escaped their control. Even in silence, they found a way to make my peace about them. I turned off my phone, sat beside Alex, and whispered, "I just wanted one moment that was mine." He looked at me calm but resolute. "Then take it back." I didn't know it yet, but that was exactly what I was about to do. The next morning, my voicemail was full. My dad's voice came first, low, sharp, controlled. "You've humiliated this family. People are calling, asking why you'd exclude your own parents. We raised you better than this." Then my mother's trembling but cold. "You've changed. You sound angry all the time. We're only upset because we care." Every message twisted the knife a little deeper, but the one that broke me came from Emily. "You've always been jealous, haven't you? You can't stand that Mom and Dad love me more. You can't even be happy for me without making it about you." I sat on the floor, phone in hand, shaking. I didn't cry this time. I just felt empty. Alex found me like that and pulled me close, but I barely spoke. I'd reached my emotional rock bottom, years of quiet pain collapsing into numb silence. Later that day, Emily's public post went viral in our small town. She wrote about how heartbroken our parents were and how she prayed I'd find forgiveness. The comments painted me as selfish, ungrateful, dramatic. People I barely knew chimed in with their judgments, defending a version of my family that never really existed. That night, I stood by the window, staring into the dark, trying to understand how love could turn into humiliation so easily. Alex approached quietly, resting his hand on my shoulder. "Do you still want them in your life?" he asked. My throat burned as I whispered, "I don't even think they ever wanted me in theirs." For the first time, I said it out loud, and the truth shattered whatever illusion I had left. I blocked their numbers, deleted their messages, and turned off my phone. The silence was unbearable, but it was also honest, and in that silence, something inside me shifted from broken to done. A few weeks passed. I didn't check social media, didn't answer calls. I just existed quietly. Then one evening, Mia, the friend who filmed our elopement, messaged me, "You should post the video. It's beautiful. People deserve to see what love actually looks like." I hesitated. The idea of sharing anything again made my stomach twist. But when I rewatched the footage, the wind in my hair, the way Alex looked at me, the calm ocean behind us, something inside me softened. It wasn't about revenge at first. It was about reclaiming my story, so I uploaded a short montage, just clips of laughter, vows, and that final moment when Alex kissed my forehead. No captions. No names. Just peace in motion. I posted it to a small circle of close friends, the ones who knew the truth. Within hours, the video spread. Mutual friends began commenting things like, "This is so pure, and you can feel the love here." And then, something unexpected happened. Extended family members, cousins, distant aunts started asking questions. "Wait, I thought her parents didn't want to attend. Didn't they say she ran off without telling anyone?" The truth began unraveling naturally, quietly, beautifully. My parents' carefully crafted narrative started to collapse. I didn't have to defend myself. The video did it for me. Then came the texts. "Emily first. Nice move. You made us look terrible." My mother followed. "You're being cruel. Family is forever." I smiled for the first time in weeks as I deleted both without replying. Because for once, silence wasn't submission, it was power. I didn't shout, I didn't argue, I didn't beg. I just lived. And that, ironically, was louder than anything I could have said. They taught me that love had to be earned, but I finally learned peace. Months later, life finally felt quiet, not the kind of silence that aches, the kind that heals. Alex and I moved into a small house near the coast, filled with sunlight and second chances. Every morning I'd wake to the sound of waves instead of criticism, laughter instead of guilt. It wasn't luxury, but it was peace, and peace felt priceless. One afternoon, I received an email from my mother. The subject line read, "Family photo request." My stomach tightened as I opened it. "We'd like to have one of your wedding pictures," she wrote. "People are asking to see them, and it would be nice to display one for family gatherings." No apology. No acknowledgement of what they'd done, just an image to polish their reputation. I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking like it was daring me to respond. Instead, I typed 2 sentences. "That part of my life no longer exists. Please don't contact me again." Then I hit send. Afterward, I went to the living room, where Alex was tuning his guitar. He looked up and smiled. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, I think I finally am." That night, we cooked dinner together, barefoot in the kitchen, the same way we did after the elopement. When he wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "I'm proud of you," I realized something profound. I'd spent years chasing validation from people who couldn't give it. But I'd built something far stronger in its place, a life that didn't need their approval to feel whole. As I closed my laptop and glanced at a framed photo from our wedding, just us. Barefoot on the beach, wind in our hair, I smiled softly. "They paid for a wedding to show off love," I whispered. "I built one to feel it, for the first time in my life." That was enough.